the Republican National Committee just had their winter meetings in Dana Point, California. And this was, in fact, the first major meeting they've had since the elections last November when the Republicans retook the House of Representatives. But they were also expected to take a red wave and to massively win things. So it's been an important meeting that the RNC has had over the last couple of days. And among other things, one of the major agenda items that they had to resolve was the RNC chair. And incumbent Ronna McDaniel was reelected.
Mike Lindell received 4 votes. Harmeet Dillon received 51 votes. And Ronna McDaniel received 111 votes. So I'm pleased to announce Ronna McDaniel has been elected chairman of the Republican National Committee, and the gavel is yours. Congratulations.
So there you have it. That's how the votes went down. And our very own president of the Family Research Council, Tony Perkins, was there and, in fact, was a heavily involved individual with giving some keynote addresses in that. And Tony, it's an honor, as always, to have you on Washington Watch. And following what was just said, the gavel is yours. How was the meeting?
Well, Jody, thanks so much for filling in and giving me the opportunity to go out and speak at the RNC's winter meeting. It was a good meeting, and my purpose in going was to encourage the Republicans that were getting, as you mentioned, there was this anticipation of a red wave. I think a part of that, and this was unpacked during the course of the couple of days, that some of the expectations were overly optimistic from some of the pollsters, given how we've already seen the states redistrict. There just weren't that many seats to pick up. It was less than a stellar result in the election. But my point was it would have been a lot worse had we not had the RNC under Ronna McDaniel, who we've been working with, that stepped forward and addressed the life issue. If you'll recall, going into that election, the two parties, the polling shows that it wasn't the top issue, the life issue wasn't the top issue for either party, but it was a strong motivating issue for about half of Republicans and about half of Democrats. Democrats talked about it, Republicans didn't. The result was the Democratic base was motivated, Republicans were not. My point was it had been a lot worse had the RNC not stepped forward, encouraging the candidates not to be silent, but to talk about and celebrate life. And that was under the leadership of the chairman. And so I went out in support of her and spoke yesterday to all of the what they call the 168. That's the 3 members from each state, basically saying, look, the party can't abandon these issues. If you do, you're going to lose about a third of those who vote for you, which are the faith-motivated voters.
Well, Tony, the point that you bring up here, I think, is an extremely important point. Most people are sitting back. They really don't follow the RNC, don't follow the chairman, don't understand the role even of what takes place there.
Yeah.
So if you can just explain to our viewers and listeners right now why Ronna McDaniel was a good choice, in fact, a great choice for our values to be able to continue moving forward.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Jody. A lot of our listeners who've been with us for a while know that about a year and a half ago, a little less, I had a very public disagreement with Ronna because she was taking the party a different direction, following kind of the left with the identity politics and advancing and announcing a pride coalition, which is, 180 degrees from where the party has been when it comes to a lot of the family and the value issues. So we had a very public confrontation. It resulted in several face-to-face meetings and me basically being able to lay out the reasons this is a problem, not for us as evangelical voters, but more for the party. And she's come full circle, or she's turned 180 degrees on this, and she realizes the importance of these value issues and realized there were some within the party pushing a counter agenda. So she has become a real advocate. And this leads to the party platform, which is something I've talked about quite a bit because I've been involved in it going back probably 5 presidential election cycles. And, some people, as you say, they don't really know what it is, if it really matters. It's just all politics. It really does matter. The party platform, as you know, as a member of Congress, is something that's used to measure the movement of elected officials by. And 80% of the time, both Democrats and Republicans stick to the principles and the policies that are in their party platforms. And so this election was important because as we go into the next presidential election in 2024, we want a party chairman who understands the importance of that platform and the importance of it to the faith-motivated voters, like what we call the sage cons. Those are the ones, and I actually, for the first time, many of them heard the term sage con. I unpacked that for them. The spiritually active, governance-engaged conservatives, challenged them to take the questionnaire, the survey, to see if they were a sage con. In fact, folks can take that today. If you're hearing that for the first time, the sage con, that's SAGECON, one word. Text that to 67742, 67742 to get a 10-question survey, and that'll determine whether or not you're a SageCon, and you'll get the results of that. And so those individuals, as I pointed out, Jody, are 15% of the voting population. That's not huge, but they're half of the evangelical vote, and they're the core of the evangelical vote. They turn out at about 97 to 98% in every election. They are influencers. They drive that evangelical vote. You can't win just with them, but no Republican can win an election without them. And so that was the message that I took. And the way to get them is not through personalities, not through politics. They really don't care for that. It's about the policies and whether or not they can have freedom of religion, whether or not we are a country that embraces life, marriage, you name it, those things that line up with biblical principles and truths.
Tony, that's awesome. And I can't underscore enough the reality, what you said, that the platform matters. Listen, we've only got about 30 seconds and I'm going to have to move on. But in light of that, does the party, do you think they recognize the need to be on the offense when it comes to the issue of life and some of these other values?
I do think, and I think that was an important conversation yesterday. In fact, last night, I spoke at noon yesterday. Kellyanne Conway spoke last night, and she was not in the session when I spoke at lunch. She had just flown in, and her message reemphasized the very same points that I made. So I spoke with many of the state leaders, and I do think that many, if not most of them, do understand that. And it's important that we communicate at the state level. So those of our folks out there across the country, they need to be speaking to their Republican Party members and Democratic. If there is a Democrat, speak to them as well. But we need to influence those parties because in a two-party system, as we have in this country, those are the vehicles, and we've got to use them.
That's right. Tony Perkins, I can't thank you enough for your incredible leadership here at FRC, but across this country. None of us can imagine the schedule that you keep. We appreciate you taking time in an airport to check in with Washington Watch. Safe travels as you continue, and thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for filling in, Jody. Have a great weekend.